We're joined by one of Britain's richest men. He is the founder of Phones for You. He's a philanthropist as well. John Caudwell, of course, worth £1.58 billion. But he's not going to spend his money on putting the heating on this winter because it's a fight against Vladimir Putin, one room at a time. Morning, John.
Good morning, Susanna.
Is that accurate reporting? Is that what you're doing?
Yes, it's accurate reporting, but it's taken completely out of context.
Oh.
You know, I've been campaigning for the Ukraine people now since the start of the war, and in various ways. I mean, I was a believer that we should have sent NATO in to defend the borders before the Russian invasion, and then it would be up to Putin if he wanted to start World War III, rather than us now on the back foot.
That's interesting.
Now, I don't believe then he would have done it and the world would have been a safer place, because he would have had to promote World War III. There'd have been no loss of face because he wouldn't have done it. So now we're in a situation where there's a huge loss of face if he pulls out. He's in a desperate situation, trying to preserve his presidency. And how does he climb down? You know, he's had the biggest shock of his life and he's in a huge mess, and that makes him very dangerous. It does make World War III a distinct possibility. We all, of course, are praying that that doesn't happen. But who knows with a megalomaniac dictator like him.
So how does shivering in your mansion solve the problem?
Well, it's a multiplicity of reasons. So the first point is I've been an environmentalist for 30 years and predicting really catastrophic consequences of what we're doing to this planet, and we're not doing enough to protect the planet. So that's point number one. Point number two, I really wanted Europe to stop buying Putin's war money through oil and gas. Of course, Europe would have faced absolutely dire consequences if we'd have stopped purchasing. We'd have collapsed from a financial point of view. But I find it very, very difficult to justify feeding Putin's war machine so that us Europeans can have a comfortable-ish life and at the same time slaughter Ukrainian people.
So it's symbolic. It's a symbolic gesture.
It's a symbolic gesture that, of course, on its own makes no difference at all. But the other aspect of it as well is I'm saying to people, look, just cut down your energy costs, because you're all moaning about the cost of energy. Now, it's very understandable, especially for the aged and the infirm. But what about the people that are not infirm like me? We can all do our bit.
Can I just jump ahead a little bit in this programme? A bit later on, we're going to be having a discussion about the Just Stop Oil campaign and their tactics to gluing themselves to the road, ambulances, fire engines not able to get through to emergencies. You talk very passionately about saving the planet. Do you support those tactics?
No, but there is a but in this, and that is the crisis that we're heading for, which may be irreversible. We don't want to think like that because we need to do everything in our power to prevent the crisis that's coming down the road. So is that tactic a reasonable tactic to try and wake the world up? Probably not, because it causes mayhem, causes chaos. I think it's too extreme. But by the same token, how do we get people to take note properly so that there's a right level of movement on the environment?
Yeah, I mean, we're just watching these pictures. The protesters clearly causing an obstruction, which means that emergency blue light vehicles... I mean, you know, John, you can imagine, can't you, if you're parent in an ambulance like that with a child who needs to go to hospital.
Well, there's extremists in every section of society, isn't there? No matter what you do, there's always those extremists that believe so passionately in the cause and are prepared to use any methodology whatsoever to get the point across. And, of course, that's just ridiculous what they're doing. But we do need to do more. The politicians need to do more. The world needs to do more.
People are fascinated by wealth, because wealth is confined to the very top echelons, real wealth. And as we've said, you're a multi-billionaire. You made your first million, you were telling me in the break, when you were in your early 30s, and then it went on exponentially from there. And you come from a council flat in Stoke-on-Trent. Very, very straightforward upbringing. How has it changed you up here, being a billionaire, having such access to capital? How has it changed you as a man, do you think?
It might sound disingenuous, but I don't think it's changed me at all.
Really?
Because I can still live a very frugal life. I do at times. I'm very peculiar, actually. I am very peculiar. All my friends tell me that. they say I'm uniquely peculiar because on the one hand, I'll be in a 15-star luxury lifestyle on my boat.
Yep.
And the next minute, Modesta and I are cycling through the Alps and we stay at a one-star bed and breakfast hotel.
Okay.
We don't need the luxury. We've got it, and it's lovely to have, but we're not sort of completely besotted by it.
Yeah, the thing that does change, which I can imagine is the sort of thing that you might not realise has changed, is that you just will never have to worry in the same way that the people you've just talked about, those people who can't afford to pay their energy bills,
absolutely,
are going to have to worry.
People always ask me, does money make you happy? And my answer is very, very simple. No, money does not make you happy, but lack of money can make you extremely miserable. And those people that are hit by energy costs at the moment and inflation at the bottom end of the poverty situation are desperately in trouble, and they need all the help that the government can give. But the government reducing taxes for people like me from 45% to 40% is bizarre and ludicrous. I mean, I can't even believe what got into the heads to do that. Because...
Well, who would have put pressure on them to do that? Because the people who pay that tax rate didn't ask for it, apparently, as you're saying. But the Chancellor says it's to stimulate growth. That the whole point is to drive growth, make the pie bigger, or increase the size of the cake.
I introduced Caudwell pandemic recovery at the start of the pandemic situation in March 2020. A campaign for Caudwell pandemic recovery. A central point of that was to stimulate the economy by having an enterprise zone where we tried to get a brain drain into Britain of all the environmental technologies around the world by tax breaks and so on, and develop the Silicon Valley for the environment. If we'd have done that now, we'd have a strong message to sell. But putting income tax down from 45% to 40% for rich people like me or other people, it won't stimulate the economy at all. It'll do nothing. So who comes up with these ideas?
Well, speaking about giving money away, is it true that you said you just celebrated your 70th birthday in October? Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Is it true that you plan to give away about 70% of your wealth before you die?
Well, not before I die, during and after my lifetime. So it'll go into a John Caudwell Foundation when I die, whatever's left, 70% of, and my children will be then responsible for carrying on my philanthropic work. And I think that's the best legacy I can leave them. Of course, they'll get money as well, but not the huge wealth that I've got. They'll get a small part of it, and the rest, they'll have the pleasure of continuing my philanthropic work, and I think that'll make them happier than any huge sum of money.
And will it make you die happy, knowing that that's your legacy?
Well, does anybody die happy? No, I think when I die, I'm going to die contented that I've done all the right things in life, that I've tried to make the world a better place, that I've contributed to it, and I've left a legacy for my children that will make them better human beings and have a happier life than if I just smothered them in money.
John, it's a really interesting point you make about what sort of money you leave to your children. I know you're about to become a dad for the 7th time, aren't you? Congratulations.
Thank you.
How much does a billionaire leave to their children to make sure that, as you say, the money doesn't, spoil the kids?
It's a really good question, and there isn't an answer to that, of course, but what I've done with my elder children is I've encouraged them to be successful in whatever they want to do. That doesn't mean making money, because money is not what creates happiness, as I've already said. So I encourage them to be who they want to be. So I've got one daughter who is a property developer and is very wealthy, made her money herself. I've got another daughter who's a psychotherapist, and that makes her happy helping other people. She doesn't earn a lot of money from it, but that's her life, and that's wonderful. And in an ideal world, I'd be alive long enough to stimulate my children in the way that they want to go, aid them to be happy, aid them to have a career, whether that's making money or not, and not leave them any money. But, of course, I'm not going to be in that privileged position to do that with all my children, so I have to decide how much to leave them, and the answer to that is, in most people's criteria, it's a huge sum of money, but compared to my wealth, it's a smaller sum.
John, it's so interesting talking to you. Thanks very much indeed. The book is John Caudwell, Love, Pain and Money, The Making of a Billionaire. Thanks so much for your company this morning.
Fascinating to meet you. Thanks a lot for coming.
Pleasure.
Good luck with the new baby.
Yeah, absolutely right. What did you make of that, Andrew and Tom?
I tell you what, I was really struck by what John said. At the Tory party conference last week, I talked to some incredibly rich Tory donors about the Tory cutting the top rate of tax, and they both said what John Caudwell said. What on earth were they doing it for now?
The theory behind it is trickle down. It's supposed to incentivise you to go out and be more entrepreneurial.
Yeah,
but I don't think you can be more entrepreneurial than you already are.
It's ludicrous because you cut the rate of income tax for those people. Is that going to keep them in the country? No, because those people that don't like paying tax are going to go to Monaco or the Algarve or wherever and pay no tax. So what if they're here still? Why do they need a windfall benefit of 5 pence less?
Yeah.
Is it going to attract people to move from Monaco or move from other parts of the world into the UK because we've got this amazing income tax rate of 40%? It's so bizarre. And I have offered my services to both Boris Johnson and Liz Truss as an advisor. They haven't taken me up on it. And some of the disastrous mistakes that have been made over the last 2.5 years would not have been made if I'd have been there.
Did they
because
say
it's
no?
ludicrous.
They said no to you?
But they didn't really answer. I mean, Boris had conversations with me, but he didn't really invite me in. I think he probably thought that the life would be too tough with me there, and it would have been.
Would you be Chancellor of the Exchequer?
No, I wouldn't. Not at this moment in time, no. No, I don't want to be in politics.
Would you be a business czar? Is that what you'd want to be?
I don't want to be in politics at all. I'm probably the only advisor, and I say this quite measuredly, I'm probably the only advisor that they could ever get that has the intellectual ability and no snout in the trough.
Right.
I don't want anything for me, nothing. I just want Britain to be great.
The money can't buy everything, and it can't buy time, and I'm afraid we're out of it.